Amala बदन सुहासा यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai Dhamma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali. Thank you. Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gurvani Pracharini Devi Sesa Sunyavadi Bhaskat Yadasatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Haribo. So today I want to go over Sanmukh Prabhu's homework. First of all, write down the words learned in the class and give their meanings. Dogma, a doctrine proclaimed as unquestionably true by a particular group. Okay? Incontrovertibly, not open to question or dispute. Polyglot, being able to speak or write many languages. Heresy, believing something which is against the precepts of another person's dogma. Believing something which is against the precepts of another person's dogma. Okay? Ire, intense anger. Heliocentrism, considering the sun as the center of the universe. Gnomic, relating to something. Let me see about that. Gnomic, expressed in or of the nature of a short, pithy maxims or aphorisms. So the word pithy, P-I-T-H-Y. This is for a vocabulary word for today. Pithy, P-I-T-H-Y, means something short and precise. Pithy, P-I-T-H-Y. And inexorable, not to be persuaded, but actually it's better to say inexorable. Inexorable means impossible to stop or prevent. Then rationalism, a doctrine that reason alone is a source of knowledge and is independent of experience. Okay? And empiricism, knowledge derived from or guided by experience or an experiment. And solipsism, the theory that only the self exists or can be proved to exist. Idealism, a theory that the real is of nature of thought, that the external perception which consists of ideas. Idealism, any of various systems of thought in which the objects of knowledge are held to be in some way dependent on the activity of the mind. Okay? Idealism, yeah, so depends on the activity of the mind. No matter, it just depends on how you perceive something. Okay. Oh, so Sanmukh said a theory that the real is of the nature of thought, that the external perception, which nature of thought, that the external perception consists of ideas. So in other words, it's the way your mind perceives things. You could say that's idealism. Okay. Now the second part of the homework, that was the first part. Write down the words that we learned in the class and give their meanings. And today, while doing that, we came up with one new word, pithy, P-I-T-H-Y, which means a short, precise statement. Okay, now, second homework, read the verse and purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19 and write the correlation between knowledge and happiness. Another reference is Bhagavad Gita 5.24. And Sanmuk writes, as discussed earlier, real knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This knowledge only comes to a devotee by performing unalloyed devotional service and hearing Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a bona fide spiritual master from the disciplic succession directly from the Lord. Excellent. Correct. Secondly, what is happiness? Now you might be thinking, why did I bring up the topic of happiness when we're talking about knowledge? If one has true knowledge, then he can be eternally happy. You might ask, how? Just like the definition of knowledge, many materialistic philosophers also don't have a straightforward answer to the definition of happiness. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, philosophers don't have an exact answer because the question itself is not clear. Materialistic philosophers who write about happiness talk mainly about two subjects. These are a state of mind and a life that goes well for a person leading it. Point 1, a state of mind. This case is a psychological matter. The subject mainly talks about happiness as a long-term psychological or mental study. The state of mind the materialistic philosophers are known to is life. Okay, it's not quite English, but all right. The state of mind the materialistic philosophers are known to is life, satisfaction, pleasure, and positive emotional condition. Okay, so there's three factors that they identify with the state of mind. That is satisfaction, pleasure, and positive emotional condition. As happiness in this case is a psychological term, one can call happiness as invaluable, meaning you cannot attribute a value to it. It's beyond our way of calculating. Okay, 2, as life that goes well for a person leading it, in this case, it is a value matter, which is also known as well-being or welfare, etc. Happiness in this case means things that benefit a person, or in other words, what helps them to be better in the material world. According to the dictionary, the term hap is a term for good fortune. This mainly means that one gets whatever he deserves. One might think that Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are always happy because they can get whatever they desire, but they still have miseries in their life. Okay? So, Sanmuk continues. Many people crave for happiness, which they think is real, but it is actually temporary. For example, some people might go to Disneyland, a park, or a long vacation, spending thousands of dollars for happiness, but all the happiness they get at those places is slowly vanquished. So, what is real happiness? So, up until this point, Sanmuk has compared the definition of knowledge by materialistic philosophers to the definition of happiness by materialistic philosophers. In both instances, knowledge or happiness, there is not a clear, concrete understanding what constitutes happiness and what, as well as what constitutes knowledge. So he identifies two things. That is, happiness, you have to look at the state of the mind, and secondly, you have to look at the life that a person is leading. So then he says that, in the material world, people are craving for happiness, but it's not eternal. It's temporary. And because of that, whatever happiness they are feeling usually ends up let's say, in misery because of the passage of time and the destruction of things as time goes by. Okay. So now he's saying, what is real happiness? As per Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19 and Bhagavad Gita 5.24, happiness is obtained when one is engaged in irrevocable, loving service of the Lord. Irrevocable means you cannot stop it. This is unalloyed. This is the unalloyed activity of the soul. Brahmabhuta stage, the stage of self-satisfaction. Okay. When you say self-satisfaction, real happiness is above that. Anyway, that's all right. We won't get into too many details. So then Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19 also mentions the reason for unhappiness because of the constitutional position. The living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme, a living being in his spiritual bliss. But due to contact with matter, the soul's activity is contaminated, which gives rise to diseased activities in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. Very good. Having learned what is real happiness and knowledge, let's understand the correlation between the two. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 5.16 and 5.24. It explains as below. Okay, so first of all, let's go back to this. So, first of all, he explained the problem with the materialist definition of knowledge and materialist definition of happiness. And now he's trying to explain what is real happiness according to Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19 and Bhagavad Gita 5.24. So you say, real happiness is obtained when one is engaged in irrevocable loving service of the Lord. That's not exactly a definition of what happiness is. It just, well, it is. I'm sorry. Irrevocable loving service of the Lord. Okay. And you say, and he says that this is the unalloyed activity of the soul, or the Brahmabhuta stage, the stage of self-satisfaction. Well, that's one stage. There are higher stages. That is the beginning stage. Let's put it like that. That's the beginning stage of happiness, because there's no misery at that point. But that's not positive happiness. That's a neutral type of happiness, the absence of suffering, the absence of confusion and duality, the absence of arguing. There are higher states of happiness that are, let's say, much more transcendental than simply this neutral state of happiness, the Brahmabhuta stage, or stage of self-satisfaction. And, okay, so how would we explain that? You're going to explain, and Samuk next is going to explain the connection of real happiness and knowledge, and that's a good point. Okay, well, let's see how he goes into that, and then I might make some suggestions. Having learned what real happiness and knowledge are, let's understand the correlation between the two. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 5.16 and 5.24. It explains as below. When one is enlightened with knowledge, the nescience or ignorance is destroyed, and then the knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. The complete knowledge will help one be fully cleansed of misgivings, and one's intelligence, mind, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. Due to this, the minds are established in sameness and equanimity, and a person doesn't rejoice in achieving something, in achieving something pleasant, nor laments on losing something and is not subject to material sense pleasure. On attaining this position, one looks for happiness within and ultimately attains the supreme. He is the perfect mystic. Okay, so now we're talking about happiness within, in other words, finding the supersoul. Prabhupada, in many of his lectures, states that our goal is to be happy, but we don't know how to become happy. The best and only way of becoming happy is to become a servant of the Lord or a Vaishnava. Prabhupada, in his lecture at Mayapur on October 20th, 1974, states, a Vaishnava has no unhappiness because he has got Krishna. Nice. Bhagavad Gita 6:20-23, it also states, in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through the transcendental senses. Also in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:12-24, we have an example of Emperor Yayati. Yayati is a great emperor of the world and the original forefather of great nations. Though a great emperor, Yayati exchanged his old age with his son's youthfulness for the purpose of sense gratification. And after being so for 1,000 years, he couldn't realize what happiness is. Finally, he understood that no one can be happy unless one serves the Lord. So he gave up his kingdom and youthfulness back to his son and exiled to the forest in order to perform service to the Lord. In summary, in other words, to summarize, when one knows their eternal position with the Lord, the servitor of the Lord, and performs unalloyed devotional service for the Lord reveals true happiness. Jai Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. The Lord reveals true happiness, which causes one's mind, intelligence, faith, and refuge to be fixed onto the Lord, which will lead to real happiness. Happiness in the material world is temporary, but if one does bhakti yoga or devotional service to the Lord, one can attain eternal happiness to his devotees. Okay, very good, Sunmut. Actually, there's a verse also, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, verse number 6. Is it verse number 6? Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti rahuksaje ahituki pratihata yayatma suprasidadi. The supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So that would be a more direct explanation of what is true happiness, although you said about the same thing. And in that purport to 126, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of Krishna consciousness for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the positive path of communication. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased state of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, i.e., without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of the devotional service to the Lord without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive action, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to partial solace in his service. So there we go. That would be the ultimate happiness. Okay, so now we have, that was Sunmuk's homework. And we also had homework from Shaitan and also from Agastya. And of course, Shrestha. Okay. So let's read Agastya. Well, no, it's Shritan. I'm sorry, I mispronounced his name. Shritan. So Agastya writes, write down the words learned in the class and write their meanings. Dogma, incontrovertible, polyglot, heresy, ire, heliocentrism, gnomic, inexorable, rationalism, knowledge, rationalism, empiricism, solipsism, and read Bhagavad Gita 1, 2, 19, and write and explain the correlation between knowledge and happiness. Bhagavad Gita 5:24. Okay, so now he writes, Atmananda is a state of self-satisfaction. This is not regular satisfaction like that of an inactive fool, whose satisfaction is actually a state of foolish ignorance. In Bhagavad Gita 5:24, it says, and Atmanandi is able to relish happiness from within instead of engaging in external activities meant for happiness. Such a person is assured to go home back to Godhead. When the devotee first becomes Atmanandi, he automatically rises to the level of goodness. Then he uses further. In Bhagavad Gita 5:24 it says, and Atmanandi is able to relish happiness from within instead of engaging in external activities meant for happiness. Such a person is assured to go home back to Godhead. When the devotee first becomes an Atmanandi, he automatically rises to the mode of goodness. Then he rises further to the stage of Vasudeva, which is unmixed sattva or Suddha sattva. In other words, transcendental goodness. Devotees of the Lord are neither passionate nor foolish. They have the same qualities of the Lord, just not the same quantitatively. By knowledge of Krishna, devotees feel happy from within, becoming an Atmanandi and eventually going back to Godhead. Very good, Agastya. And Shritan writes, in the Bhagavatam it says, as soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the person becomes situated in a mood of goodness and is happy. In the purport, Prabhupada says that if a living being is in his constitutional position, he is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. So a second word today is constitutional position. We might have gone over this before, but it's very important. Look up constitutional position, C-O-N-S-T-I-T-U-T-I-O-N-A-L, position, P-O-S-I-T-I-O-N, constitutional position. Our constitutional position is to be in the service of Krishna. Knowing this, a devotee will perform devotional service which causes him to be satisfied, because if Krishna is satisfied, everyone automatically becomes satisfied. With this knowledge, a driver can perform devotional service and become happy. In the Bhagavad Gita 5:24, it says, happiness must be within, for you will enjoy it. For you to enjoy it. Bhagavad Gita 5:24 says, happiness must be within for you to enjoy it. This means it can't be through material means. Knowledge leads to happiness because the knowledge tells you the means of getting the happiness. Many people take drugs to try and keep themselves in a high, but knowing that internal happiness and service to the Lord will keep you happy. You are assured to go back to Godhead, as is in translation of Bhagavad Gita, as said in the translation of Bhagavad Gita 2.24. Knowledge of Krishna assuring you that you will have a place in his abode will surely make you ebullient There's a good word, ebullient. E-B-U-L-L-I-E-N-T. Ebullient means bubbling over with happiness. So therefore, knowledge of Krishna assures you that you will have a place in his abode, and this will surely make you ebullient. Okay. So, and I think Krishna Raheja also sent in homework last minute. Okay, so he translated the words. He gives a little more elaborate definition of these words. Let's look at what he says about solipsism, the belief that only one's mind exists. This one guy factored out everything out of his existence except for his mind. It says, the belief that only one's mind exists. This one guy factored out everything out of his existence except for his mind. Well, that one guy is René Descartes. So this one guy factored out everything out of his existence except for his mind, because everything else was false, but his mind was true because he could think. So that is solipsism, the belief that only one's mind exists. And idealism is the belief that reality is indistinguishable or inseparable from human understanding and or perception, that it is in some sense mentally constituted and otherwise closely connected to ideas. Okay, so that word solipsism, and in the definition of solipsism, let's go over that one more time. The belief that only one's mind exists, that's solipsism, okay. And then idealism is the belief that reality is indistinguishable or inseparable from human understanding and or perception. So that's a materialistic conception, that the modern concept of idealism, because they believe that reality is indistinguishable or inseparable from human understanding and or perception, and that it is in some sense mentally constituted or otherwise closely connected to ideas. So that's a false concept of reality. But some people like to bring everything down to their low level, and that's what even though they call it idealism, it's actually their understanding of it is very low level concept. And then Krishna Raja says, after reading Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.19 and 5.24, he says, real knowledge is knowledge of Krishna, and the knowledge of Krishna will take away your modes of passion, which ultimately leads to happiness, when you become free of passion, meaning lust, anger, greed, and so forth. Okay, good. So today we're going to go a little further with this subject. This is all part of our book called The Science of Knowledge. So what were we trying to do today? We were trying to show that real knowledge will lead to real happiness, and false knowledge will lead to illusion and suffering. But to develop that thought a little more, your homework for tomorrow is to read Canto 1, Chapter 12, verse number 26. Canto 1, Chapter 12, verse number 26, in which there's a description there's a long description of many verses of Parikshit Maharaj and what a great personality he was going to be, because he was just born, and then the different sages, and then there's a description of why he's going to be such a exemplary person. And Sutta Goswami is explaining this. Well, here in the purport to 1.12.26, Prabhupada says, the wisest man in the world is a devotee of the Lord. Now, wise or wisest means someone who has wisdom. Right? So, a third word for today is wisdom. And when you look up the word wisdom and the meaning, explain the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Explain the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Let's see what it says here. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is possessing a mental understanding of certain information. Wisdom is the practical ability to use your knowledge to make good decisions consistently throughout your life. One common illustration of the difference goes something like this. Knowledge is understanding that a tomato is botanically a fruit. Okay, 1 second. Okay, wait a minute. Knowledge is understanding that a tomato is botanically a fruit. Okay, so then what is wisdom? I guess wisdom is when you taste that fruit, you understand that it's very juicy, it's very nutritious, it's very, it quenches your thirst, and so forth. So knowledge would be understanding certain information about something, and wisdom is the practical ability to use your knowledge. So that would be somewhat the same as jnana and vijnana. So compare the materialistic definition of knowledge and wisdom to the description of jnana and vijnana in the Bhagavad Gita. That's another homework for tomorrow, related to words that we're learning. So here Prabhupada says, the wisest man in the world is a devotee of the Lord. So that means the devotee of the Lord has real wisdom and the most wisdom than other people. The sages are called wise men, and there are different types of wise men for different branches of knowledge. Unless, therefore, the king or the head of the state is the wisest man, he cannot control all other types of wise men in the state. Now, why should the king have to control all the other wise men in the state? Usually a king has many wise men as counselors. You know, they're members of his cabinet, etc., or they're people that are called in because they have a particular expertise in a certain type of knowledge. So why does Prabhupada say here that unless, therefore, the king or the head of the state is the wisest man, he cannot control all types of wise men in the state? Well, this is an important point. When you're a leader, you have to have people working under you. But for that, let's say, relationship people have to be convinced that you have, or that the leader is the wisest person, has the most experience, has the most expertise, has the best discriminative power. If they think, oh, the leader is a dummy, I know more than he does, then there will not be a good relationship between the advisors of the king and the king. If the king is an incompetent person, then familiarity breeds contempt. This is a statement in English. Look this phrase up. Familiarity, F-A-M-I-L A-L-T-Y. Familiarity breeds contempt. C-O-N-T-E-M-P-T. This contempt is a very powerful word and a powerful emotion, and it's always a source of trouble. If you have contempt for someone, there will be an explosion at some point between you and that person. So look up the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt. So if you're a wise man and you're called by, let's say, the president or the king to give them advice, and they perceive that they have more wisdom than the king, then it will be difficult for the king to control those people. Now, why does the king have to control those people? Well, whenever there's a leader, that means that that person controls others. And that control will not be, let's say, congenial, C-O-N-G-E-N-I-A-L. It's another word. Congenial, C-O-N-G-E-N-I-A-L. Look that word up also, congenial. The relationship won't be congenial if the other wise men think that the leader is less wise than them. That means they want to work for a leader who's wiser than them. They want to be able to share their wisdom and learn more deeply from the wisdom of the king or the leader. Just like a guru. If you have a guru who's basically ignorant, then you would feel that, wait a minute, I can't surrender to this person because he makes too many mistakes, or his knowledge is not complete enough. I ask him so many questions and he can only answer 1 or 2 of them out of 10, you see. So that causes a problem. But if the guru or the leader is the wisest person and can always answer questions, or if they don't know the answer to a question, they can say, well, I will find out and come back to you with the answer. But if it remains a mute point, M-U-T-E, that's another word, mute, M-U-T-E, look it up. If it's a mute point, in other words, it's not a debatable point, then one will lose respect. Okay. So it says, unless therefore the king or the head of the state is the wisest man, he cannot control all types of wise men in the state. In the line of royal succession in the family of Maharaj Yudhishthira, all the kings, without exception, were the wisest men of their times. And so also it is foretold about Maharaj Parikshit and his son Maharaja Janamenjaya. So the Bhagavad Gita, now I'm going to explain something about Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is meant specifically for leaders of society so that they become the wisest persons and gain the respect of all other wise people and continually make the right decisions that lead people back to Godhead. Okay? So now the cat is out of the bag. Now you know what the real purpose of Bhagavad Gita is. It's to train the leaders of society so that they can be the wisest persons to guide all other wise people or all other people. Such wise kings can become chastisers of upstarts and uprooters of Kali. In other words, they can chastise the dacoits and the speculators and the atheists and the cheaters and the liars. They can chastise them. They can punish them for their wrongdoing to correct their wrongdoing. And he can also control the uprooters of Kali. In other words, excuse me, he can uproot Kali. That means Kali has a root planted strongly in this age, so he can tear that root of Kali out of the ground and deny it of its nourishment so that it dies away. Just like you take a weed and you pull it out of the ground, it no longer gets any sustenance or nutrients from the earth, and it no longer can synthesize chlorophyll, and therefore it begins to wither, become dark, become yellowish, and then dark, and then unresponsive, and die, because it was uprooted. So in the same way, the king can uproot the personality of Kali. And however, here in this sentence, Prabhupada says, such wise kings can become chastisers of upstarts, in other words, chastisers of the disobedient people, and uprooters and uprooter of Kali, in other words, pulling out Kali from being embedded or rooted in this age. And then he says, kama, or quarrelsome elements. So he compares the personality of Kali, or Kali-like people, to quarrelers, people who quarrel, people who argue, people who fight. So now we understand why a person has that non-agreeable, let's say, persona. Look up this word, persona, Persona, persona. Very interesting word. So why should the king, or why does it say, or why does Prabhupada draw a direct correspondence between Kali and quarrelsome people? Well, this is the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. That's the name of Kali Yuga, the description of it. It's the age of hypocrisy, where people are lying, but they're insisting that they're not lying, and they're quarreling. I'm not a liar. And then other people say, no, you are a liar, and then the quarrel goes on. So in this age, why is it that so many people are quarreling, arguing? Just like husband and wife can be arguing. Relatives can be arguing. Neighbors can be arguing. Nations can be arguing and fighting with each other. Arguing always leads to a fight. Why is it like that? Well, Prabhupada now explains that Maharaj Parikshit wanted to kill the personified Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow, the emblem of peace and religion. The symptoms of Kali are wine, women, gambling, and slaughterhouses. Wise rulers of all states should take lessons from Maharaj Parikshit in how to maintain peace and morality by subduing the upstarts and quarrelsome people who indulge in wine, illicit cosmetics, and women, gambling, and meat eating. To support, meat eating. Wise rulers of states should take lessons from Maharaj Parikshit in how to maintain peace and morality by subduing the upstarts and quarrelsome people who indulge in wine, illicit connection with women, gambling, and meat eating, supplied by regularly maintained slaughterhouses. Okay. Now, let's discuss one point. I think we've discussed it a little bit before, but it's important that we discuss it now. Whenever Prabhupada refers to wine, women, gambling, and slaughterhouses, what does he mean by women? Well, Lord Chaitanya says in the 6th Astakam, number 4, O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire women, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. When he says this, what is the word that he uses for women? So it says, Trinadapi Sunichena Taropi Saisnamani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. No, that's not it. Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadish Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatad Bhaktira Haituki Twai. So let's look at the Sanskrit of the fourth mantra of the Siksastakam. Nadanam. That means na means not, dana means wealth. Oh my Lord, oh Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth. Nadanam, najanam, nor do I want any number of followers, or family members, or followers like disciples. Na sundarim. Okay, now this is the word that we have to focus on. It's translated as women, but actually it means any object of desire. So, a man can be an object of desire for a woman, or a woman can be an object of desire for a man, or any other combination. You see, sundarim refers to an object. It can be a man, it can be a woman, an object of desire. One wants to possess this thing, to exploit it, to derive sense gratification. So, Prabhupada says in Kali Yuga, usually men want to act as Purusha. Purusha means the enjoyer. However, in Kali Yuga, women also want to be the enjoyer. So, and men wants to be the enjoyer. But actually both women and men are to be enjoyed by the Lord. So, men and women are considered prakriti, what is enjoyed by the Lord. But when the men or the women want to act as Purusha, the enjoyer, they engage inevitably in sinful activity. So this word sundarim is any object of enjoyment. But Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So it's not signaling out women, all women. It's signaling out those women who want to be enjoyers like men and exploit other people for their own selfish satisfaction. So let's not be, let's not misunderstand when Prabhupada says wine, women, intoxication, or meat eating. He's talking about fallen women, and in a more general way, anyone who considers themselves to be an enjoyer rather than a servant of Krishna. So, even one little desire to enjoy, independent of Krishna, will keep a person in the material world without any hope of being liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. You have to give up this selfish desire for sense gratification. And how do you do that? By using all your senses, including the mind and intelligence, in the service of Krishna. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. Both men and women can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life by becoming a genuine devotee of Krishna. Okay, so then Prabhupada continues. He says, Maharaj Parikshit wanted to kill the personified Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow. The emblem of peace and religion. So the cow is the emblem or the representative of peace and religion. The symptoms of Kali Yuga are wine, women being sense gratification, gambling, and slaughterhouses where they kill cows. Wise rulers of all states should take lessons from Maharaj Parikshit in how to maintain peace and morality by subduing the upstarts and quarrelsome people who indulge in wine, illicit connection with women, gambling, and meat eating, supplied by regularly maintained slaughterhouses. So now, in America today, in the last 3-4 days, there have been riots. Riots in Portland, riots in Los Angeles, riots in Atlanta, riots in St. Louis, riots in Chicago, riots in New York City, where white and black people are burning and looting and stealing and fighting and shooting and killing. So this is nothing new. I remember when I was your age, in 1968, there were huge riots. There was war in the streets in many of the same cities where this fighting is taking place now. But it was worse then. There was actual war between the National Guard soldiers and civilians, mostly black. There were some white people also fighting against the soldiers. So, you see, nothing has changed. No matter, economic development does not change anything. What has to be changed? What has to be changed is this quarrelsome anger and lust and greed. You don't change it with capitalism. You don't change it with communism. You don't change it with socialism. You don't change it with anarchism. Or you don't change it with fascism or dictatorships. The only way you can change the quarrelsome, angry, lusty nature is by Krishna consciousness. There you go. That's the solution to all problems. Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is the solution to all problems. So here we see, and now today, or yesterday, this famous professor from Harvard University, Cornel West, who there's a YouTube video of him speaking with Radhanath Swami. He's a very famous man in certain circles. I wouldn't say he's famous with everyone, but in certain circles he's very famous. He's a so-called intellectual. He's saying that there were black faces in high places, but they couldn't do anything. So he's referring to Obama and Eric Holder and all the different black people that were in Obama's government, right? He was president of the United States. He said they were in high places, but they weren't able to do anything. Now, what does he mean by do something? His idea of doing something is that they should have changed America from a capitalist country to a communist country. Now, although Cornel West is very smart, but he's not intelligent. There's a difference between smart and intelligent. What's the difference? Well, we're not talking about false intelligence now. We're talking about real intelligence. Real intelligence is to understand that all problems are caused by forgetfulness of Krishna. And all problems are solved by remembrance of Krishna and following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Now, what is Prabhupada saying in this purport? He's saying that this quarrelsome nature, this Kali Yuga behavior, is due to intoxication, illicit activity, such as illicit sense gratification and gambling and meat eating. Are any of the leaders of society today talking about this? answer. No. It's a big no. Therefore, the problems don't go away. The problem that was there in 1968, the problem that was there in 1861 to 1865, the Civil War in the United States, the problems that were there in 1776 when there was a revolution going on against the British, the problems that are here in the 1960s, that were here in the 1960s, and the problems here today are the same. They haven't changed because there's meat eating, gambling, illicit sense gratification, and intoxication. So no progress has been made in human civilization since the beginning of time until now, because in this Kali Yuga, because in fact it's getting worse because of these 4 regulative principles that are being regularly broken, and people have no clue that this is related to being stupid, suffering, and unhappy. They have no clue. If you say something, well, if you stop killing cows, what? Killing cows? That's my food. I can't get along without a hamburger every day, made in, the Wimpy's or McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever, So, they're like incredulous. They can't believe that we said something so stupid as meat eating has something to do with being quarrelsome, angry, lusty, and greedy. But see, the obvious it's so obvious that they're blind to it. This is their problem. So you see, this purport by Prabhupada explains, number one, how the ruler of a country has to be the wisest person. And now he's going to explain how you become wise. In this age of Kali, regular licenses issued for maintaining all these different departments of quarrel. So in other words, the government is supporting meat eating, gambling, illicit sense gratification, and intoxication. Right? So how can they expect peace and morality in the state? So until these 4 principles are followed, there'll never be peace, there'll never be morality in a country. The state fathers, therefore, must follow the principles of becoming wiser by devotion to the Lord, by chastising the breaker of discipline, and by uprooting the symptoms of quarrel as mentioned above. So if you want to be, he says, the state fathers, in other words, the leaders of society today, therefore must follow the principles of becoming wiser by devotion to the Lord, by chastising the breaker of discipline, and by uprooting the symptoms of quarrel, as mentioned above. If we want blazing fire, we must use dry fuel. Blazing fire and moist fuel go ill together. Peace and morality can prosper only by the principles of Maharaj Parikshit and his followers. So everybody wants peace and morality. Everyone in their right mind. All the demons maybe don't want peace and morality, although they talk about it. But this is how to get peace and morality. And when you mention that this is the way, people look at you like you're crazy, like you're talking nonsense, like you've come from another planet and you don't understand anything on the earth. See, this is the incredible ignorance of the people. And you'll see, what did the looters do last night, the night before? They broke into liquor stores and they stole the liquor. They broke in to other stores. They broke in even stores owned by black people, and most of the rioters were black. There was a small number of white people also with them, but most of them were black. They even burned down restaurants and businesses that belonged to black people. In other words, it had nothing to do with anything moral or anything rational. They're just angry. They want to break things. Okay, there might be a reason why they did that. And there might be a reason why they did that. One black man was very mercilessly killed in Minneapolis. by a white policeman. That white policeman has been arrested and he's charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter. And it's not like a one-time thing that happened over the last, let's say, 5-10 years. There have been many, more than normal number of black men that have been killed by policemen, sometimes for valid reasons, and sometimes in outrageous ways, illegal use of force by policemen. Yeah, but that doesn't mean all policemen are bad, and that doesn't mean that all black people are bad. But sometimes you have that, and you have black people that kill white people also on a regular basis. So it's not just a one-way street. But the incidence of a white policeman killing a black man that's unarmed and in the process of arresting that person, I mean, it's not good. Let's put it like that. It's not right. All people should be treated with respect. In criminals, unless they're violent, they should have an expectation of being treated in a humane way into jail, and then they have a right to be represented by a lawyer and make their case, whether they're guilty or not guilty, whatever. But, being killed in the process of being arrested, and when a person is not like violently resisting, that should not happen. Okay. Now, there are gray areas. I mean, it's not easy being a policeman. It's not easy being a criminal. If you're a criminal, you're always taking a big risk. And if you resist arrest, then the police have a right to use lethal force. But if a person is down and in the process of putting handcuffs, they're basically choked to death because they can't breathe, because someone has their knee or their foot in their neck. That's not right. That's not right. So that's what happened, and this reaction to it is not right. So two wrongs don't make a right. That's another saying in English. Two wrongs don't make a right. So this type of violent reaction, burning down, looting liquor stores, looting stores, burning down stores, trying to break into the White House to go after Trump. It's overreaction. What's important is that policeman who unjustly killed the prisoner in the process of arresting them and handcuffing them, he should be prosecuted for third-degree murder and manslaughter. And it should teach a lesson to other policemen that, you don't use excessive force when a person is down and is in the process of being handcuffed. Right? Okay, so we see that this purport has a direct correspondence to what's happening today. This is the important point. This is why we're studying Bhagavad Gita. It's not that we need new solutions to old problems. The solutions to the problems are already there. People are not following them. That's the problem. They don't know how to analyze correctly what is the cause of the problem. So Prabhupada says here, blazing fire and moist fuel go ill together. Peace and morality can prosper only by the principles of Maharaj Parikshit and his followers. So if you want peace and morality, you should cultivate Krishna consciousness, the whole society. Then there will be peace and morality. If you want this thing to go on, fighting, wars, murders, burning, economic downturn, pandemic, then continue meat eating, gambling, illicit sense gratification, and intoxication, and it'll never go away. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So your homework for tomorrow is to read this purport carefully. Look up the current affairs, the news of what's going on in Minneapolis, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, St. Louis, okay? And give an analysis why it's happening and how it could be resolved and how this following the regulative principles is related to becoming peaceful and happy and prosperous. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now, are there any questions anybody wants to ask? Okay. No questions and no answers. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. But this is what's going on today. You're not going to, I mean, either we talk about it or they're going to find out about it.